30 all-time legends. This is an extraordinary team if ever there was one. So let's get right to it, beginning with the first baseman and the Iron Horse, Lou Gehrig.
At the end of the century, people of my generation seem to know two things about Lou Gehrig. Long streak, died young. Those two things have overshadowed how prominent and how great a player Gehrig was.
Lou was just such a solid hitter. He did a line drive to the outfield, and he hits the squares like a knuckleball and come at the outfielder, and it was tough to catch.
Be sure to keep the arms free from the body, back, and ready to hit.
Lou's thunderous bat did, however, belie the quiet gentleman who swung it.
I call him a live and let live man. No violence about him. Even when he got knocked down, he took it. Lou treated it like sooner or later you'll have to throw the ball over the plate. And when you do, I'll cream you. That's the type of guy he was.
Lou played in 2,130 straight games, earning the nickname the Iron Horse. Then his career was cut short by an incurable disease.
You can't imagine that something like that would happen to a big, strong man like him.
And of course, Lou's farewell to baseball brought forth one of the game's most memorable lines.
Today, I consider myself the luckiest man on the face of the earth.
He's such a mechanically sound hitter. He's quiet when he gets locked back there. He's just focused. When the ball's in the zone, he just goes down. You see his legs flex a little bit, and he transfers his weight.
The 16th player in Major League history to hit 500 home runs.
We all love the big, powerful home run hitters, and in the modern game, Mark McGwire is that stereotype. He's a huge, strong, big guy that hits towering, long home runs.
Still, it wasn't until 1998 that Mark McGwire achieved Ruthian status.
He said it was unbelievable to be in the same sentence as Babe Ruth, but for our generation, you are Babe Ruth.
Well, thank you. I don't care where you're playing. That's just a tremendous feat. It's just, you're playing a little league ball. Hit 7 home runs. That's a lot of home runs.
In the field, number 70. How much more can you give us, Big Mac?
Coming up next, the all-century second baseman.
With Jackie, you can't leave the ball game because he might do something you've never seen before.
MasterCard presents the Major League Baseball All-Century Team.
Jackie Robinson is, no doubt, the most influential member of the All-Century Team.
I wouldn't be sitting here if it wasn't for him. His impact on the game was bigger than just a game. I mean, he had an impact on America.
When I got there, I said, you know, the one thing that I can do as a black player is to continue the fight that Jackie started.
He changed the way we thought, he changed the way we lived, and don't forget, he entertained us as a baseball player.
If Jackie Robinson would have come to the big leagues at the age of 20, 21, 22, like most of us did at that time, I mean, he'd have probably broke every second base record or wherever he played.
Jackie Robinson was probably the most disruptive player. When he got on base, he created havoc.
He took Negro League baseball to the Major League. He took that excitement, bust the ball, first base, steal second, steal third, steal home. With Jackie, you can't leave the ball game because he might do something you've never seen before.
Rogers Hornsby is considered to be the greatest right-handed hitter of all time.
Hornsby's .358 batting average is the highest batting average by any right-handed batter in the history of the game.
As we come to the end of the century, no one will have hit for a 400 batting average for the last 58 years. Picture doing that once, and then being consistent enough to do it over a 5-year period.
As a hitter, Hornsby had an intensity unmatched by his peers. They say he never left his home in the winter, waiting for the spring, when he'd once again reemerge and amaze.
If not for Babe Ruth, you'd look back at the 1920s and say that was the age of Hornsby. Just a remarkable player. Hard to imagine any second baseman that would be better than Rogers Hornsby.
We continue our trip around the Horn with 3 superstar shortstops.
And let it be said that number 8, Cal Ripken Jr. has reached the unreachable star.
It's tough to play every single game. And at shortstop, what Cal Ripken has done without missing a game, I don't know if people understand how amazing that really is.
You get a shortstop that can hit the ball out of the ballpark. What an asset it is.
Cal Ripken was a big idol of mine growing up because he was a big shortstop. I think he paved the way for the taller shortstops of today.
Cal was just a great shortstop. Very knowledgeable on playing the hitters, very sure-handed, very, very accurate arm. There wasn't anything about the game that he didn't study to the nth degree.
Yet this most celebrated ball player prefers to be remembered as a blue-collar worker, one who just did his job every day.
There are a lot of great things about being a baseball player, but it doesn't change who you are. And I think that's one of the highest compliments you can pay someone, is if you say he's just a regular guy.
Chicago is the Wrigley Building. Chicago is my kind of town that won't let you down.
One thing I remember about Ernie, he loved baseball, loved to play. He wanted to play too every day.
When I think of shortstop, I think of a great band leader like Louis Armstrong.
He had soft hands. He got to the ball and seemed like every time he threw to first base, and it was often said, he just gets you.
He had great wrist, and if you threw him anything low, you know, he could hit it out of the ballpark.
That's the fly ball, beat the left, back, hey, Ernie Banks got number 500.
Sunshine, fresh air, so let's play two.
I think there's a little difference in baseball now between when I started out and what she is now. In other words, they ain't allowed to use the spit ball, the emery, and the mud ball, and the shine ball.
But even those pitching tricks couldn't stop Hannes Wagner from becoming the first dominant player of the 20th century.
He was recognized as a magnificent fielder, base runner, and batter during his day. And to this day, is still widely regarded as the best shortstop in the game, and clearly one of the finest players to have ever played the game.
It is remarkable, and it's astounding because we're talking about years when the league batting average might have been 245, 248. People who saw him 20, 30, 40 years later would say he was the best player of all time, better than Ruth, better than Cobb.
Sometimes we have to defer to the judgment of the people who actually saw him play. And when they had the first Hall of Fame election, a lot of the voters in that election had seen Wagner play. And it's interesting that Wagner and Babe Ruth got exactly the same number of votes. That's a pretty strong statement.
Coming up next,
Swinging long drive, number 500.
the all-century third baseman. We now present the greatest third baseman of the 20th century. Mike Schmidt was a player for the ages. A lethal bat, a terrific glove. Third base was Schmidt's domain. He led the National League in home runs a record 8 times and won 3 MVP awards.
The combination of big-time home run hitter and great fielder is, you know, it's hard to find.
Right back and off the glove, and he will not. Mike Schmidt, what a play to get him!
As you're approaching 500 home runs, there's something about that number, you know, there's a lot of focus. It does put you in an elite group in terms of players.
The 3-0 pitch, swing a long drive! There it is! Number 500! The career 500th home run for Michael Jack Schmidt!
I've seen him enough to know this. They're never going to tell me there's somebody better.
Baltimore embraced 1964 MVP Brooks Robinson for his artistry at third base, his down-home demeanor, and his desire to succeed.
I really and truly believe everything I accomplished was not all on ability. I just think my love for the game probably overrode everything else, and the passion to play.
I got to see firsthand how good a player Brooksy was. You know, the ultimate, I mean, defensively unparalleled. He had great reflexes, he had tremendous quickness, great hand-eye coordination, had a terrific glove.
I've seen some good ones, but I haven't seen anybody any better than Brooks Robinson. Brooks did things in the 70s series that maybe America had not seen.
When people think of Brooks Robinson, they think of defense more than anything else, and there's no doubt in my mind that 70s series really acted as a springboard for my entering the Hall of Fame.
He thrilled me day after day after day, and I just loved playing him.
From the hot corner to the backstop, here are the catchers.
If you have to pick at every position one great one, Bench is the greatest catcher that ever lived and ever will live.
He was just so smart. I mean, he could sit on the bench with me, and he said, "Did you see that?" And I said, "No, I didn't see that."
I sit over here with Jonathan. He's smart.
Smart enough to revolutionize the way his position was played by keeping his right hand safely behind his back.
Well, I learned to do things that nobody else had been able to do because they'd always been two-handed catchers, and they'd take that round glove and they'd stick it down there.
I thought Johnny had the best arm of any catcher that I've seen because of the way he threw the ball, and I think it came across his ear, across his right ear, very truly.
As great as Bench was behind the plate, he also had more than 2,000 hits, almost 400 home runs, and a knack for coming through in the clutch.
And a pitch to Bench, change hit in the air to deep right field, back goes Clemente, and the save, she's done!
If you were going to build a catcher, I would use Johnny Bench as a blueprint. There was nothing that Johnny Bench couldn't do behind the plate.
Lawrence Peter Berra, known to everyone as Yogi.
For 18 years, Yogi Berra was the anchor of the New York Yankees. Though he certainly didn't look the part.
Yogi, first of all, if you look at him, you'd say, well, he's not a ball player. Well, he's only a Hall of Famer.
Yogi inspired fear in opposing pitchers because he hit almost anything.
Yogi was a bad ball hitter. You couldn't throw it too high and you couldn't throw it too low.
I saw the ball good. A lot of people ask me, how come you hit so many bats? To me, they look good when I hit them. I played 17 years with them. I was in 14 of them. And we won 10 World Series, and I was just born at the right time.
And the Yankees are champions, and look at Barrow, piggyback riding Bob Costas.
On everything he did, he had more impact than most other players do, and certainly out of proportion to the numbers he left in the book.
Coming up next, the all-century pitchers.
He would tell you. He said, here it comes. It didn't do anything but just go up. I couldn't hit it.
Of the 1999 World Series. Here, once again, is Bob Costas.
Over the past 100 years, thousands of men have stood on a mound and tried to throw a small white ball past a man standing 60 feet 6 inches away wielding a wooden bat. Some of them have done it so overwhelmingly well that they become legends. They become, in fact, at century's end, members of the all-century pitching staff. Let's begin in the fast lane with the Express.
Every time you faced him, you know what's coming. You hear it coming.
To me, that mound's your mound and that's your territory, and you want the hitter to know that you look at it that way, and it's the hitter against the pitcher. You don't want to ever give them the thought that you're not confident in what you're doing.
He warmed up one game and came in the dugout and came over to me with a pale look and said, "This might be the end." And Nolan went over and was wiping his face before he went out on the field. And he said, "Have somebody ready quick." You know, I had a real bad feeling in my stomach thinking that I was going to have to be there when he walked off the mound for the last time. And I always worried about that. He threw no hitter that day.
That's it. Number 7 is in the books. The remarkable Ryan has done it again.
When you think about all the great players that played in this century, to be put in that category is very special. And there's a lot of those hitters I would have loved the opportunity to face because I think it had been a real challenge.
The day I wasn't pitching, I used to sit down just to watch him. His fastball and his breaking ball, his overhand curve, he was the master.
He stumped the best, even when they knew what was coming.
I knew he would tell you. He said, "Here it come," and the ball would get there and go up. It wouldn't go. It didn't do anything but just go up. I couldn't hit it. It start here, go up.
And you almost felt like he could pitch a no-hit game any day he walked out there. Some pitchers go out there, they don't have their good stuff. Well, I never saw a day that Koufax didn't have good stuff.
1 strike away. Here's the pitch. Swung on and missed. A perfect game.
Sandy was almost perfect in 8 World Series games, with an earned run average that was, incredibly, below 1.
You've had 4 no-hitters, a perfect game. Where does this one fit in as far as thrills are concerned?
I don't know, Vinny. This has got to be as high as any of them. This whole year is a thrill.
He won 129 games in 6 years, 27 his final year, before arm trouble ended his career.
He was the pitcher of that decade, maybe any decade, really.
Bob Gibson probably was the best competitor I've ever played against. He gave no quarter, did not like talking to the opposing team.
Gibson wouldn't say a word. I go over to him, "Hi, Bob, how you doing?" "I don't know. I'll let you know tomorrow." And you knew that tomorrow I didn't want to play.
The pitch coming, a swing and a miss. He struck him out. And that's 3,000 for Bob Gibson.
Bob Gibson could throw a fastball or a slider on any count in an area about twice the width of a baseball on the outside part of the plate, just above the knees.
68 just happens to be the year that everything came together. And yeah, I was in a zone.
In 1 game.
Gibson excelled in the Fall Classic. He won 7 consecutive World Series games and pitched 8 straight complete games. So who would he pick as his all-century starter?
It would be me. I'd pick myself first.
Cy Young pitched from 1890 to 1911, and he pitched like no man since.
The number of games and innings pitched, number of wins, his numbers are just mind-boggling.
Denton True Young was named Cy, short for Cyclone, due to his windup. That cyclone wreaked havoc on the record books.
The classic example is if you win 20 games for 20 years, you'll be 111 wins short of Young's record.
And 511 wins is just, it's amazing.
The ultimate measure of Young's greatness is that his name is on the mind of every pitcher in baseball when they take the mound each spring. Their quest, after all, is to be the winner of the Cy Young Award.
At the end of the show, once the all-century team has been selected, Major League Baseball and MasterCard want you, the fans, to name the starting lineup. Just log on to MajorLeagueBaseball.com, the official website of Major League Baseball, to vote for your starting lineup. The fans' starting lineup will be announced during Game 4 of the World Series, right here on NBC.
The greatest pitchers of the century. They called him the Big Train, Walter Johnson, and he was unquestionably one of the greatest pitchers of all time. Maybe the best.
If you've had the privilege of seeing old clips of Johnson throwing, it's amazing that he could pitch over 90 miles an hour with that easy sidearm motion. But because it was so easy and so deceptive, batters at the time said that all they could do was hear the ball as it whistled past their bats. It just kind of exploded.
This amazing achievement will probably never be approached. Johnson has more shutouts than the top 3 active shutout leaders combined.
Walter Johnson, as far as I'm concerned, was the greatest pitcher in baseball history.
In my opinion, and the opinion of many others, he accomplished more for his teams than any pitcher in the history of the game.
Physically, I'm going to try and beat you. If that fails, my mental part of the game takes over. And if that is all falling apart and that's not happening, my emotions come into play. And I've been emotional times on the mound. I'm trying to elevate my game.
Clemens has set a major league record for strikeouts in a game. 20.
Here's the 2-2 pitch.
He's one of those guys that you really want to get him because all the intensity in the game, but then you feel so frustrated because you can't.
Roger Clemens becomes the 11th Major League pitcher to hit the 3,000 mark.
When you win an individual award like that, it's really not an individual award. I had a lot of guys make me look good and make me shine.
Lawrence Spahn was pretty special. A stylish left-hander. If anybody ever fit that description, it was Spahny. Not only with the array of pitches that he threw, but he had a classic wind-up and a great pickoff move.
Spahn was by himself. You know, he won 363 games, and he won 20 games 13 years. You know, that's almost unheard of.
Though he didn't get his first win till age 25, Spahn pitched for more than 2 decades. And with each passing year, his resolve grew.
When I got to be at an advanced age, my ball club was thinking in terms of replacing me with a younger left-hander, so it kind of spurred me on. Baseball was so good to me that I had the opportunity to play in the big leagues for 21 years. I wouldn't want to play in any other era than the one I did. We had fun playing, and I wouldn't change a thing.
Lefty Grove could throw hard. He had a good fastball. We pitched against each other, and I lost to him 1-0. It was an honor. I enjoyed it, every bit of it.
Lefty Grove was the most revered and dominant pitcher of the 20s and 30s.
Lefty was one of a kind. He was overpowering and such a vicious competitor.
They talk about 100 miles an hour. I think he threw that ball 200 miles an hour. Looked like a pea coat up there.
Lefty Grove won 9 ERA titles in an era which was very heavy on offense, where entire teams batted 300 in the 1930s.
If I was going to pick one left-handed pitcher in baseball, he's the best I have ever seen.
Christy Mathewson was the first great superstar of the 20th century. Because he had gone to college, he'd been an All-America football player at Bucknell, because he was tall and good-looking and blonde in an age in which photographs were becoming increasingly important in American society, Mathewson made the game respectable.
His speed and pinpoint control made Christie the National League's top pitcher in the early 1900s, a fact his numbers reflect.
If you look at the 373 wins, a phenomenal total. You look at the complete games. He completed, I think, over 80% of every game that he started. He threw 390 innings in a season and walked only 42 men. He started 11 World Series games. He finished 10 of them. His ERA in the World Series was 1.15.
And in 1905, Mathewson dominated a World Series like few men since.
So Christy Mathewson was somebody everybody looked up to, and somebody who delivered on his expectations almost every time he took them out.
Coming up next, the all-century outfielders.
In the minds of us that play baseball, Hank is the king. No, he'll always be the king.
Elevator to lobby.
And choosing members of the all-century team outfield. Some of the greatest names in the game's history have graced outfields from Fenway to Candlestick. May it rest in peace. But when it came time to make these selections, there was one name folks had no problem with. Because in the lore of baseball, no name carries greater weight than the Babe.
Every time you mention baseball, it's Babe Ruth. I mean, he captured the imagination of baseball fans, of non-baseball fans throughout the world.
I'll tell you right now, 1,000 years from now, they'll still talk about Babe Ruth. He's the first one that ever hit 60 home runs.
He was the most tremendous player this game ever had.
Twice in Ruth's career, he hit more home runs than any team in the league. I think that's the most benumbing statistic in any sport.
Babe Ruth ushered in a whole new era when he introduced power on a grand scale to the grand old game.
People had never seen a ball hit so hard, never seen a ball hit so far, and he did it with such tremendous flair.
He became the biggest name in all of baseball. No, better make that any sport.
I just hope that fathers will keep on telling their sons, once upon a time, there was a baseball player named Babe Ruth. And he was a great baseball player and a great guy.
In American mind, Babe's still the king. But in the minds of us that play baseball, Hank is the king. No, he'll always be the king.
Champion of all time, and it's Henry Aaron.
I don't say he was the best home run hitter. I say he was the best hitter.
Think about how many hits he has. 3,700 and some odd hits, right? You take away the 755 home runs he hit, and he still got 3,000 hits.
Lost sometimes in his home run heroics is the fact that Hank Aaron could do it all.
I don't think everybody realizes how well he could play the outfield, how he could steal a base when you needed to have a base stolen, how he could get a base hit when it just required a base hit and a home run wasn't the thing. And I think that he was a better all-around player than people realize.
And the thing about him is he's smart. See, I don't think people understand how smart Hank was. I mean, he knew all the time what was coming. He knew the umpires. He knew the catchers.
I studied the game. You know, I could tell you at the end of the season, if I hit 40 home runs, who I hit those 40 home runs off of, what situation it was. Baseball was a 24-hour job to me.
There was only one player I think that the whole world wanted to be like, and that was Willie, because Willie did everything.
Nobody gonna see a player better than Willie Mays. He's the guy that was gonna do every little thing to beat you.
There's only 5 things you can do to be great, and that's hit with power, run, field, and throw. Mays could do it all.
It amazed me the way he played the outfield. The easy floating out there, it looked like nothing was an effort.
There's a long drive, way back in center field, way back, it is.
He's the guy you see when you envision baseball, you close your eyes, you see Willie Mays.
Baseball's a fun game, and Willie played it like he was a young boy and having fun, and that's why he was such a good ball player.
I like to be remembered as a guy that loved what he was doing, and I love playing baseball.
As far as I was concerned, I was happiest when I put on the uniform and played baseball.
And for 22 seasons, Stan the Man played it as well as anyone. He was known for his ever-present smile and for one of the sweetest swings in the game.
The rookies who came to spring training, they would ask me, I was always smiling all the time and enjoying myself. And I used to tell these rookies, it's a great feeling when you know you're going to hit 340, 350 before the season starts.
To tell you how good he was, I said, Stan, how does the ball look to you coming to the plate? He said, it looks like a grapefruit. I said, it looks like an aspirin tablet to me.
Coaches in baseball said he would never hit with that stance he had because it was so unique and so different.
I wanted to guard the plate and the strike zone, so I crouched over it somewhat.
Line drive, there it is! Hit number 3,000!
Of around 14,000 players who played Major League Baseball in this century, only 4 of them rank among the top 20 in each of the Triple Crown categories. Babe Ruth, Ted Williams, and Lou Gehrig might be easily guessed. The 4th is Stan Musial.
The magnificent Yankee, the great number 7, Mickey Mantle.
Mickey Mantle was a 3-time most valuable player. During his 18-year tenure with the Yankees, they won 12 American League pennants and 7 World Series.
Mickey Mantle had more physical ability than any player I ever saw. I think Mickey made the comment that if he'd known they were going to make such a big deal out of the 40-40 thing, he would have done that, and he certainly could have. He had the speed to do it.
He had power. He could hit the ball, boy, pretty good both ways, left and right.
I hit long home runs. When I hit the ball good, it was a home run. My longest balls were left center, right center, and dead center.
There's a fly ball out to right field. That ball is going, it is gone.
Who knows what Mantle might have achieved had his legs withstood the test of time.
I've always said that Willie Mays is the greatest player I've ever watched, with one exception. If Mantle would have had 2 good legs, I might have been saying that about him.
Coming up next,
you will never stop him from coming after you.
4 more all-century outfielders.
All-century team.
We now continue with our look at the greatest outfielders of the past 100 years.
They throw in where I'm swinging, and I'll be swinging, might mean the old ball game.
If I give myself one bit of credit, it was that I thought about what I had to do as much as any hitter.
He studied baseball, he studied hitting, and he knew it from here to there, A to Z. You could hardly ever fool him.
I was worried about just hitting the ball hard. And I knew if I hit the ball hard, I had a hell of a chance.
And we can't forget that Ted lost 5 of his prime seasons to military service.
All the opposing players would come out of the locker room just to watch him hit. I mean, that's how good he was. He just had a swing that he just perfected.
You couldn't try to sneak a fastball by Ted, even though you're throwing over 100 miles an hour. It was like trying to sneak a sunbeam by a rooster. You can't do it.
There was something special about Ted Williams, and to me, he was the most outstanding hitter that I ever saw.
He wore the Red Sox uniform for 22 years. He was the last man to hit 400 in a season. The greatest hitter that ever lived, Ted
Just putting on the Yankee uniform, and I'm not exaggerating when I say this, I was proud.
I seen DiMaggio for 5 years. He never did anything wrong. He was a perfect ball player.
Did you ever see Joe hit? He was very difficult to strike out. You seldom fooled him. Quick reflexes and great wrists.
That is the most remarkable and heroic feat because it has something of the everyday as well as the Superman. Here's a guy who shows up for work every day and does what he's asked to do. He's supposed to get a hit, and he does it.
Joe DiMaggio was the complete ball player. He played hard every day. For him, it was the only way.
He could throw, he could run, he could hit and hit with power. And made it look easy.
Played over 10 years with him, and I never saw him make a mental error. Well, everything he did was Mr. Perfection.
In order to win in the big leagues, you've really got to be a strong competitor. If you're not a strong competitor, you're gone.
There was no more fierce competitor in baseball, or maybe anywhere on the planet, than Tyrus Raymond Cobb.
Ty Cobb was a player that did everything hard. As soon as he got his uniform on, he was a different man.
Very driven individual. One of these people that you see once or twice in a generation, a ball player that gets the max out of his potential, out of his body.
Nowhere was that more evident than when Cobb was on the bases.
When he'd slide into a base, he'd try to hit the second baseman. He'd try to run right into him with his legs.
He really baffled the baseman, I think. They didn't know exactly what he was going to do.
Today you see a graphic that says, you know, this player has batted .350 over his last 5 games. Ty Cobb batted .366 over a 20-year plus career.
To win the batting crown 9 years in a row is probably one of the most difficult and, in today's world, underappreciated feats. He was generally considered to be the greatest baseball player of that era.
What made Pete Rose so tough was this. If you hurt him, and he's laying down there, and he isn't breathing, right? And the coroner says, he's dead. That's a bad thing that coroner just said.
I mean, this guy, I can remember when he'd get base hits up the middle, singles, diving into second. Or a walk, he ran hard to first. And I'd hear players on my own bench, Charlie Hustle, knife Fanny. And you know what I'm thinking to myself? Everybody should play like that.
There's just something about Pete, and you look at him going, he's going to be a damn tough guy to beat.
Pete was so consistent, it was unbelievable. I mean, each year, 200 hits, 200 hits, 200 hits.
Because of his durability, because he knew he was going to play almost every game, knew he was going to make contact probably 4 times a game, he actually thought he could break the record.
At the end of the show, once the All-Century team has been selected, Major League Baseball and MasterCard want you, the fans, to name the starting lineup. Just log on to MajorLeagueBaseball.com, the official website of Major League Baseball, to vote for your starting lineup. The fans' starting lineup will be announced during Game 4 of the World Series, right here on NBC. MasterCard presents the Major League Baseball All-Century Team.
Among the 30 on the All-Century team, we've already mentioned Cal Ripken Jr., Roger Clemens, and Mark McGwire. But the 4th is the most intriguing, because this guy still has a good portion of the next century in which to build upon what he's already done.
I just want to
be the best player that I can be, not what they think I should be or who I can be. I just want to be Ken Griffey Jr.
You don't want to take this guy for granted. That's how good he is. I see him crash against the walls, hit 500-foot home runs over and over again every night.
I've never seen a player that makes things look so easy at times. Just simple.
He had it all the way!
Makes it look easy.
He just kind of like floats and just glides through the ball and just have a very fluid swing. And just like, oh my God, this guy's sick. He makes me sick.
And Griffey hits it a mile.
And I've always said that if it's anybody that's capable of breaking a record, my record, it would be him because of his consistency, and he's young enough to do it.
If Hank Aaron thinks he can, then obviously who are we to quibble?
Griffey going back over his shoulder, makes the catch.
If you're a good hitter, you'll stay around 4 or 5 years because you can hit. But guys who make careers out of this are the guys who go out there and play defense.
Leaps high in the air, and he's got it!
He'll do something, and you just kind of look at it, and your mouth will drop open, and you're almost in disbelief.
Amazing catch by Junior!
If it's hit and Junior can't catch it, well, it can't be caught.
Incredibly, still in his 20s, Griffey is the youngest member of the All-Century team, a state-of-the-art player, one for the ages and beyond.
Griffey might become the first player to make 2 All-Century teams, the 20th century and the 21st century.
Who knows what the next century will bring, but this one has brought us players and memories to last a lifetime. Man, there's some history for you, huh? But in a way, that's part of the problem. Baseball's history is so long and rich that it's impossible to include every deserving ball player on a 30-man team. As a member of the panel that helped select the team, it pains me that Tom Seaver, Satchel Paige, Bob Feller, Steve Carlton, and Greg Maddux aren't on the pitching staff, that we couldn't find a spot for George Brett at third or Jimmy Fox at first, that the greatest slugger of the Negro Leagues, Josh Gibson, isn't one of the catchers, or that the outfield doesn't include Roberto Clemente, Frank Robinson, or Shoeless Joe Jackson. Their omission from this squad doesn't mean for a minute that they're not among the very best who have ever played the game. Well, we hope you enjoyed this look at the All-Century team, and I know I'll see you back here at 7:30 Eastern Time for Game 1 of the World Series. Joe Morgan will join me from here at Turner Field for the call. Until then, so long, everybody.